This is the podcast overview for the objectives on Chapter 12, Adversity and Happiness. So we're going to be looking at why some people are lonely and the consequences of it, what research suggests for reducing loneliness, like what is actually effective and what works, discussing the importance and role of similarity, assumed similarity, and individual differences in a happy marriage. So, this is one of those chapters where we kind of look at all aspects of relationships, but we do spend a significant amount of time looking at marriage, because that can be one of the key relationships in life where you find both adversity and happiness, believe it or not. Number 4, discuss how a communal approach and positive illusions factor into a stable relationship. Identify the genetic, environmental, and social roots of obesity. So actually that factors in hugely to depression, loneliness, which is sort of the flip side of happiness. Provide an overview of the physical and psychological consequences of stress, what happens to us physically when we are under a lot of stress, perhaps chronic or long-term, and then psychologically, what are the consequences of that? And then outline social support as a coping mechanism for stress. So one huge key player in stress reduction is having a good social support network that helps mitigate the effects of stress, and coping is a good strategy there. Outline the effects that police lineups may have on the general impact of a trial before it begins. So here is again some key topics in applied social psychology when it comes to adversity. We're looking at an applied setting where you can actually take this research and take this work and see how it affects things like a police lineup, and how this might affect a trial. And then 2, identify the influence of prejudice and stereotypes on the legal system and ways the impact of prejudice can be reduced. This kind of piggybacks a little bit of what we did in our chapter on prejudice and racism. But again, it's trying to tie in adversity in an applied way in the criminal justice system here. Then we're going to jump into more of the happiness research, understand the ways in which happiness is typically measured. Like how do we go out and measure happiness? What equates to happiness? When you ask people, how happy are you? What does that mean? What does that look like? And can we universally even measure happiness? Identify how wealth is related to happiness. What's the connection between income and happiness? Identify which countries are happiest, and the reasons why. This is going to surprise you, I think, finding these out. And then identify ways to improve happiness. What does research say are some good strategies for increasing one's happiness? And that wraps up Chapter 12.